If you spend enough time studying World War II at ground level, rather than from maps and timelines, you begin to notice how much of the war was fought in darkness. Night patrols, reconnaissance walks, wire-cutting missions, and silent observation posts shaped outcomes long before daylight assaults began. These missions depended less on firepower and more on preparation. At the center of that preparation was a small, easily overlooked piece of equipment, the Night Scout pouch. Rarely photographed and even more rarely discussed, this pouch carried the tools that kept men alive when visibility dropped to nothing and noise meant death. This guide looks inside that pouch, not as a collector's curiosity, but as a practical survival system refined by necessity. Understanding what went into it, why each item mattered, and how the system worked as a whole reveals an overlooked layer of wartime intelligence and discipline. You see, night scouting demanded specialized equipment, not just the standard-issue gear handed out to regular troops. Night scouts, well, they weren't just ordinary infantry waiting around on delayed schedules. Their job was to move silently through contested terrain, often pushing ahead of friendly lines, with no guarantee of any immediate support. That kind of work, it needed something a bit different. Standard loadouts, honestly, they were just too noisy, too bulky, or, sometimes far too visible. Even something as small as a metal buckle could give away a position, which in those situations could be, well, deadly. The Night Scout pouch, it really came about as a direct response to all of this. It was compact, soft-sided, and crucially designed so it could be accessed by touch alone. That made all the difference for those moving in the dark. Every item inside served multiple functions, and nothing was included without justification. Weight was secondary to silence and reliability. How the pouch itself was designed for darkness and silence. The pouch was typically made of canvas or treated fabric with muted coloration. Closures avoided metal snaps when possible, relying instead on cloth ties, toggles, or carefully wrapped buttons. The goal was to open it without sound and close it without fumbling. Placement on the body mattered. It was worn where it could be reached with either hand, often on the chest or hip, allowing access while prone. This design choice alone speaks to how carefully night movement was studied and refined. What essential tools consistently appeared inside the Night Scout pouch? While contents varied by unit and theatre, patterns emerged. A small flashlight with a hooded lens, or, even an improvised slit cover was common. This allowed brief illumination without broadcasting your position, which was honestly absolutely vital. Scouts used it sparingly, often cupping it in their hand to reduce spill. It was all about staying hidden, really. Cutting tools were critical. Wire cutters or compact knives allowed scouts to breach obstacles silently, without drawing any unwanted attention. These were, kept wrapped in cloth to prevent that telltale metal-on-metal noise. Chalk or, well, soft marking material was often included to leave directional signals visible only at close range. Navigation aids, honestly, mattered more at night than by day. Compasses with luminous markings, sometimes modified with a dimmed glow to avoid detection, were standard. Paper maps were folded to expose only the relevant sections, which, really helped to reduce rustling and confusion. Why were personal survival items prioritized over weapons? Well, night scouts avoided combat whenever possible. Weapons were always secondary to movement and observation. Many carried minimal ammunition, focusing instead on tools that enabled escape or concealment. A small ration of food, often hard and odourless, prevented hunger-induced mistakes. Water containers were chosen for quiet handling. Some pouches included a small vial of oil to silence squeaking gear or stiff joints on weapons. First aid items were stripped down to essentials. Bandages and compresses were packed tightly and quietly. Morphine syrets or pain suppressants appeared in some units, acknowledging the grim reality that wounded scouts might need to self-manage injuries long enough to withdraw. Scouts, had to organize their pouches so they could use them even without being able to see. Everything inside had a fixed position, making it possible to find what they needed just by touch. They practiced retrieving items while blindfolded over and over until, muscle memory took over and they no longer needed to look to know what they were grabbing. In the end, this training was, honestly, more important than the equipment itself. It was the practice and the preparation that truly made the difference. Soft separators, often improvised from cloth, prevented items from shifting. Texture differences helped identification. A wrapped flashlight felt different from a metal compass. This tactile organization reduced decision time and noise. Modern survivalists can, really learn from this by organizing kits based on touch rather than just appearance, especially in those low-light or high-stress scenarios. So, here's the thing. This pouch actually supported mission-specific improvisation. The Night Scout pouch was not static at all. Before missions, scouts would customize the contents based on the terrain and their objectives. Forest patrols, in particular, emphasized navigation and, of course, cutting tools. Urban reconnaissance, often favoured simple tools like chalk string and small wedges for marking and signalling. These humble items were, really essential for communication and navigation in the city. This adaptability, it actually made the pouch more of a living system rather than just a checklist. It was always changing, you see, responding to whatever the situation demanded. Items were removed, replaced, or modified constantly. Usefulness was always the priority, so the contents of the pouch were never quite the same from one day to the next. Nothing was sacred except usefulness. What this pouch reveals about World War II field intelligence. The Night Scout pouch represents a philosophy of preparation rooted in realism. It accepted that conditions would be poor, information incomplete, and support distant. Rather than relying on technology or brute force, it emphasized skill, awareness, and restraint. This approach explains why many night scouting techniques persisted long after the war. Modern reconnaissance doctrine still echoes these principles, even as materials and tools have evolved. For modern outdoorsmen, search and rescue volunteers, or preparedness-minded individuals, the Night Scout pouch offers a model for low-profile readiness. A small, silent kit, organized for touch, can outperform larger, louder systems when conditions deteriorate. Practicing access in darkness, eliminating unnecessary noise, and prioritizing multifunctional tools are lessons directly transferable from World War II Night Scouts to present-day use. You know, why remembering overlooked equipment matters is really important. History often celebrates weapons and vehicles while neglecting the quiet systems that made survival possible. The Night Scout pouch was never meant to be seen. Its success, well, it depended on remaining unnoticed. Studying it reminds us that victory and survival are often shaped by what is carried silently, prepared carefully, and used sparingly. If this deep look into World War II backyard wisdom expanded your understanding of how the war was truly fought in the dark, subscribe to the channel and share this guide with others who value the details history tends to overlook.